dramatic twist in the RG Core rape and murder case with Mamata Banerjee, the embattled Chief Minister of West Bengal, suddenly without warning reaching the doctors' protest site. I'm Barkha, Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. In the last few minutes, these are the visuals that have emerged from Kolkata, where the Chief Minister of West Bengal reached the doctors' protest site unannounced. Remember, the impasse between the protesting doctors and the Chief Minister has been over live streaming their dialogue with her. Well, Mamata Banerjee did end up going live, but an unscheduled live, one that the doctors were not ready for or prepared for. She came, she spoke, and she left. But in her comments, she did assure the doctors that the guilty, those responsible for the rape and murder of a young doctor at the RG Core Government Medical College would be punished. She also said that the guilty were not, quote unquote, her friends. She spoke about being mentally taxed by the situation, and she said she came not as the chief minister, but as the Didi to doctors. What happens next? Has Mamata Banerjee made a move that the doctors will find difficult to in a sense, take forward with their protests? Will they step back from their protests now? Will they return to work? Now, remember, there has been kind of contradictory signals coming from the government, because while Mamata Banerjee did this, the TMC has also been blaming the protesting doctors for what they call deaths as a result of the protest. In fact, Mamata Banerjee's government has announced compensation for those that they say have died because of these protests. There was also reports of prohibitory orders imposed in Kolkata that would have stopped the protesting doctors from gathering. So a kind of carrot and stick approach is being attempted here. To talk about what might happen next, Dr. Kunal Sarkar, one of the country's best-known cardiac surgeons, is with us. We welcome him to the program. I want to play out, I want your first comments, and then I'm going to play out an excerpt of her speech, just in case we missed anything. What do we make of the fact that the chief minister, the talks failed the last time over this issue of live stream? She did go live, but not with the knowledge of the doctors. She reached there, she started speaking to them, and those comments were ironically live streamed. Dr. Sarkar, your first thoughts?
Barkha, you are correct that she was live, but you see the important difference is that she did not allow the doctors over there to respond to anything, right? So it was her deposition. It was a very passionate appeal from her. It was very much one-ended conversation. If you had noticed, if you see the clips, all these doctors were all around her. They were quite reasonably well behaved, a few slogans apart. So they were all around her, but none of them, as soon as she had finished speaking, she was escorted away from the dharna site. And as soon as she had left, one of the doctors' movement leaders responded. So I'll tell you what they said.
Okay, so before we get to how the doctors are responding, let's listen to what Mamata Banerjee said, and do tell us if we have missed any operative comments that she made. But I think the important thing that you're pointing out is that the live stream that occurred was a monologue and not a dialogue. So we in real time, we didn't get to see the doctors being able to question the chief minister, but indeed she came, she made a passionate, emotional speech. Let's see what impact it has. Let's listen in.
এবং তাই মাত্র এক মাসের মধ্যে যারা এসছে তাদের কথা মার্ডারের সাথে দুর্নীতির সাথে যুক্ত থাকে, আমি নিশ্চয়ই সাধ্যমতো চেষ্টা করব কথা বলে অ্যাকশন নেবার। আমি আবার আপনাদের কাছে বিনীত অনুরোধ করব যে আপনারা নিজেদের মধ্যে কথা বলুন, কথা বলে সিদ্ধান্ত নিন এবং আপনারা কাজে ফিরুন। আপনারা আমার ভাই বোন, এটুকু জেনে রাখবেন, আপনাদের জন্য সিম্প্যাথি, আমি কোনো অ্যাকশন নেব না। আমি ইউপি পুলিশ নই। ওরা এসমা জারি করেছিল, ওরা 6 মাস মনে রাখবেন স্ট্রাইক র্যালি বন্ধ করে দিয়েছিল। আমি এসব করব না। আপনারা নিশ্চিন্ত থাকুন, কোনো ডাক্তারের বিরুদ্ধে, কোনো কারো বিরুদ্ধে কোনো অ্যাকশন নেবার আমি বিরুদ্ধে। আমি জানি আপনারা অনেক কাজ করেন, মহৎ কাজ করেন। আপনাদের ছাড়া সিনিয়ররা, যেটা কিডনি ডিপার্টমেন্টে মারা গেছে, ক্যাথলেটও চেঞ্জ করতে পারে না, ক্যাথেটার চেঞ্জ করতে পারে না। সেই জন্য আপনাদের আমাদের প্রয়োজন। আমি আপনাদের বলবো, আপনারা ভেবে চিন্তে সিদ্ধান্ত নিন। আর যদি আপনারা আমাকে বিশ্বাস করেন, আমি যখন আপনাদের ধর্ণা মঞ্চে আসতে পেরেছি আপনাদের একজন সহযোদ্ধা হিসেবে, তখন মনে রাখবেন যে আমি আপনাদের, যদি আপনারা বিশ্বাস ভরসা রাখেন, বাদ বাকিটাও মনে রাখবেন। আমি আস্তে আস্তে করে, একদিনে তো সব হয় না, করতেও সময় লাগে, আমাকে একটু সময় দিন। আমি নিশ্চয়ই সাধ্যমতো চেষ্টা করব। আমি দুর্নীতির কোনো একটা টেন্ডার কেস আজ পর্যন্ত আমার কাছে আসেনি। কোন রোগী কল্যাণ সমিতি কি কাজ করে এটা আমি জানি না, এগুলো আমার আন্ডারে আসে না। তাও বলি, যদি আপনাদের কোনো কমপ্লেন থাকে, কমপ্লেনের ভিত্তিতে নিশ্চয়ই আমরা তদন্ত করব। এমনিতে বিনা কারণে কাউকে সাজা দেওয়া যায় না। তদন্তে যদি প্রমাণিত হয় আমি নিশ্চয়ই সাজা দেব। আর একটা কথা, সুপ্রিম কোর্টে কেস চলছে, মনে রাখবেন 17 তারিখেও ডেট আছে। আমি চাই না আপনাদের কোনো ক্ষতি হোক। আপনাদের দিদি হিসেবে আপনাদের কাছে আমি অনুরোধ করতে এসেছি। আমি মুখ্যমন্ত্রী নই, আমি মুখ্যমন্ত্রী হিসেবে বলতে আসিনি, আমি আপনাদের দিদি হিসেবে বলতে এসেছি, যাতে আপনারা না ভাবেন হ্যাঁ আমি চিফ মিনিস্টার আছি। আমি একটা পার্টিও বিলংস করি, কিন্তু আপনাদের কাছে এসেছি যদি বলেন অ্যাজ এ চিফ মিনিস্টার, অ্যাজ এ এল্ডার সিস্টার, এবং আপনাদের আন্দোলনের সমব্যথী এবং সমসাথী, তাহলে আপনাদের অনুরোধ করব আমার কথা শুনুন। আগেও আপনাদের সমস্যা আমি সমাধান করেছি এবং আবার আমি করবার চেষ্টা করব। আমাকে একটু সময় দিন। ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন। আর একটা কথা বলবো, আমি আপনাদের কাছে আবেদন ছাড়া কিছু করতে পারি না, আমি আপনাদের জোর করতে পারি না। আমি আপনাদের কাছে আবেদন করে গেলাম, যদি আপনারা মনে করেন আপনাদের ধর্ণা মঞ্চে আসার ফলেও, আমি 26 দিন অনশন করেছিলাম, মনে রাখবেন সিপিএম গভর্নমেন্ট ছিল পাওয়ারে, একদিনের জন্য কেউ আমাকে কথা বলতে আসেননি, কিন্তু তা সত্ত্বেও আমি এসেছি। তার কারণ আমি মনে করি আপনাদের কাছে আসা মানে এটা নিজেকে ছোট করা নয়, এটা নিজেকে বড় করা। তাই আপনাদের আবার আবেদন করব, আপনারা বসুন, আপনারা আলোচনা করুন, পরে সিদ্ধান্ত নিন। আমার এটা লাস্ট চেষ্টা আপনাদের জন্য করে গেলাম। বাদ বাকিরা যদি আমার উপর ছেড়ে দেন, আপনারা জাস্টিস পাবেন, আপনারা ইনজাস্টিস হবে না, এটুকু আমি বলতে পারি। অনেক ধন্যবাদ, নমস্কার, এবং আপনাদের সকলকে অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ জানাই।
All right, you can hear Mamata Banerjee there saying that she's there as not the chief minister but the elder sister to the doctors, chants of "We want justice." But as the doctors begin to speak, she leaves. So, as Dr. Sarkar pointed out, this was a monologue, a speech, and not a dialogue. Dr. Sarkar, before I come to you, we do have on camera one of the doctors responding who was there. I'm just going to play out his comment and then we'll come right away to you. Listen in.
কারণ আমরাও চাই এই সমস্যার একটা সুস্থ সমাধান হোক, আমরা যাতে দ্রুত কাজে ফিরতে পারি।
আমরা আজকে এটা সদর্থক ভূমিকা হিসেবে দেখছি, আমরা ওয়েলকাম জানাচ্ছি, কিন্তু আমরা আমাদের ন্যায় বিচারের যে 5 দফা দাবি, সেই দাবিতে কিন্তু কোনো সমঝোতা আমরা করব না, কোনো সমঝোতা করব না। কিন্তু আমরা এই যে মুখ্যমন্ত্রী এসেছেন, আমাদের সাথে আলোচনার সদিচ্ছা দেখিয়েছেন, আমরা এটাকে অত্যন্ত সাধুবাদ জানাচ্ছি এবং আমরা এক্ষুনি আলোচনার মাধ্যমে এই মুহূর্তে এই অচলাবস্থা কারণের জন্য ওনার কাছে দাবি জানাচ্ছি, এক্ষুনি উনি আলোচনার টেবিলে বসুন। এক্ষুনি এই যে মিডিয়া রয়েছে, আমি দাবি জানাচ্ছি স্বচ্ছভাবে এখানেই আলোচনা হোক, এখানে আলোচনা হয় আমাদের দাবি উনি মেনে নিক। আমরা চাই এটা, উনি এতদূর এসেছেন, আমাদের কাছে এসেছেন, স্বাস্থ্য ভবন এখানেই, আমরা স্বাস্থ্য ভবন, উনি স্বাস্থ্যমন্ত্রী, উনি এক্ষুনি আমাদের সাথে বসে আমাদের এই ন্যায় বিচারের 5টা দাবি মেনে নিন, এটা আমাদের তীব্র দাবি থাকবে।
Okay, Dr. Sarkar, we need your help. I was able to understand that the doctors are saying that we wanted a debate or a discussion. I think that's what they were saying, but do translate for us.
Barkha, I think the synopsis of what's just happened. Firstly, I think it was a welcome touch of a humane approach from the chief minister, because the aborted meeting that happened day before yesterday, I think she took a bit of a stern, uncompromising attitude, with sitting in an empty hall, lot of empty chairs, the meeting not happening because of live streaming. I don't really think it went well as far as the public relation quotient of either the government or the chief minister was concerned. Probably, if you had a cynical interpretation, people said that the stark photographs of she sat in an empty hall with chairs and doctors not responding would create a very different kind of impression, and that would ricochet in the press and probably create an impression in the minds of the Supreme Court as well on the 17th. So that was a different kind of narrative. But what was important today, I think, number one was she really gave not just an undertone, she gave a kind of humane overtone to what has just happened. She landed in the middle of the scenario. So this was, in some ways, a little bit like the old time Mamata Banerjee, who was always in the middle of action, who was always like playing it from the front line. So that kind of approach was seen back again. But other than that, I think what is the central issue as far as the discussions now are, as far as the negotiation position right now is concerned. So with her humane appeal, she's coming as an elder sister, not as a chief minister. That notwithstanding, you see, the central thing is number one. She really is imploring the protesters, the students, saying that, look, don't be adamant with your 5 point agenda for the time being. I am aware of what your 5 point agenda is, but I require my own time to deliberate on how to do, what actions to take. So I am aware of what you have said. I cannot take an instant decision on what you have asked for straight away. You trust me, have faith in me, leave the agenda with me, get back to work, end your protests, and I assure you that I will do whatever it takes me to do. That is the bottom line. Now,
But can I? Yeah.
so I just complete one thing. So a little, the tug of war still persists in some ways. The tug of war persists in the sense that the doctor's response, I think three of them had brief responses after she had ended speaking. Three of them responded saying that they are not really giving up on their 5 point agenda. They welcome, they are very much they have a positive feeling about her being there, and they are taking this as a signal to start the talks that did not happen last time straight away. Okay.
Right. Right.
So that is where I think the tug of war is resting now. The doctors do not want to give up the agenda. The protesters do not see her gesture as an end in itself, that they are going to say, like, we really have trust and faith in you and we wait for your judgment. They are looking at this as another attempt to start the discussions.
Now, I have a couple of questions. There are those who believe that Mamata Banerjee's move even earlier, I'm ready to resign, how she sat in that room, she said, I waited and waited and waited, nobody came. Now, coupled with her going to the protest site today, speaking live in a monologue, yes, but still speaking live, is also aimed at presenting the doctors, if they do not move, as intransigent, as presenting herself as the one who's been willing to adapt, to respond, to react, albeit belatedly. Are the protesting doctors now Because remember, these are junior doctors. The rest of the country's doctors are no longer protesting. In a way, they must be feeling isolated. They've written to the president, they've written to the prime minister. Are they on the back foot, Dr. Sarkar?
Look, Barkha, whenever, and hopefully, and for us, it hasn't happened too often. Whenever any doctor's body takes to sort of actions like cease work, etc., not working, staying off their duties, time is never in our favor, right? So the longer this thing stretches out, things are going to be more difficult because you are staying off work with its own implications, which may be
Yeah.
mild, moderate, or severe given the situation. And especially these being trainee doctors at various stages of their training, of their postgraduate, degrees and accreditation. Obviously, in a subtle or in a crude way, if either today, tomorrow, or day after you decide to come down on them, these youngsters can be really, really handicapped. Okay, so these possibilities are there. Let us not
Yeah.
pretend those things are not there. Definitely, those protests are there. I have a feeling that the doctors will definitely take the opportunity as Mamata Banerjee, she comes and she presents herself, makes a bit of a humane, emotional appeal in front of the doctors. But this whole situation is very unlikely to resolve without a round of face-to-face discussions. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
think that they have stuck it out long enough. They have stuck it out for more than a month. So these are also A, adamant, B, they are reasonably proud young men and women. You know. So they have their courage of conviction. If they did not, they wouldn't be driven this far. So I have a feeling, and I hope so, I really hope so, that the government agrees to a round of discussions.
But
After
a
this,
round of discussions live streamed or not, because that's what stopped the talks from taking place last time.
I think those issues will probably become ornamental at this stage. Those will not be crucial issues anymore. You see, what is this big deal about live streaming? This big deal about live streaming is from a round of discussion, I hope sincerely if the chief minister and the government wants to work towards a solution, their first thing is that they have to acknowledge that they have been a part of the problem. Now, this has not happened before. In
Right.
the past instances, you were sorting out problems created by third parties. And you were acting as the arbitrator, you were acting as the peacemaker, you were acting as, look, I'm going to give you protection, police, etc., solve your issues. But here, the perspective is different. Whatever is discussed, whether the police buffing up the investigation is discussed, whether the vandalism is discussed, whether the government being very tolerant of this mafia spreading itself through the health service system is discussed, the government will have a very unpleasant initial half an hour or so of discussion with these young people and acknowledge that, look, these problems were there, we were not vigilant or methodical enough, that is why this fungus has grown. Now let's call a spade to spade and we agree to some correctives. Now I'm reasonably sure that this is they cannot avoid this round of conversation. There is no way this can be avoided. But
Yeah.
obviously, given the government's frame of mind, they would rather not have this conversation. But is it avoidable? I think, probably in a toned down way, probably the tempers will be cooler. Probably they people will come off the hardline attitude, but a brief discussion I think will happen.
Now, I was just thinking that had everything been the same, but had it been coupled, for example, with an announcement of some heads rolling, I have accepted the offer by the police commissioner to resign. She has told us that he offered to resign, or I have asked the health secretary I have transferred the health secretary out of this position. Some indication, as you said, acknowledgement of a mistake and punishment or penalty for that. I think this would have gone down much better.
Burkhardt would have, but if you put it, you see where the government's or her difficulty lies over there is if she agrees to the the commissioner or the health secretary's head rolling, then that ipsi facto becomes a submission of guilt. Then you are already submitting to the point that yes, of course, the Calcutta by if you took a popular vote, you will get 95% concurrence that the police were not smart enough. You will get a 90% concurrence that the three highest ranking officials had no business of signing the order for demolition of a part of the seminar hall, right? So that would be a very early submission of guilt that look, yes, all these things happened. So even much before the CBI submits their closure report or status report, it would be a clear-cut submission that look, this has happened. So let's move on. Which I think in this day and age, again a combination of being defiant and a combination of having that should the CBI give an ambiguous kind of report, which I don't think is in the realm of impossibility, then probably the government will say, look, we've just accepted what the CBI has said. Because if
Yeah.
you do so now, you will be clearly admitting that these things happened and hence the heads have rolled.
But Dr. Sarkar, there's also an element of carrot and stick by the West Bengal government. So there's Mamata Banerjee here is the Didi and not the chief minister. But the chief minister is talking about compensation for deaths she alleges have taken place because of these protests. There are reports of prohibitory orders. They clearly haven't worked. The doctors are still protesting. Now, the doctors question this statistically. They say, look at the percentage actually of government sort of services to begin with. Secondly, even the Abhaya clinic, there are pictures of them running their Abhaya clinic, named such for the victim of this rape and murder. So this carrot and stick, right? The Trinamool Congress on social media has been consistently attacking the doctors for being responsible for the deaths of patients. Now compensation is being announced. So which Mamata Banerjee is it? Or is this a smart politician because she's wearing two hats all at once?
I think she is. I mean, she has put on a human face to it, but the social media handle and the people, the ground force, the ground force of the TMC has really they've had or their line of approach has also been unambiguous. They have already started a kind of what you call they have constructed a what is called a social segregation policy. A class war is going on where the doctors' protests and the civic society sympathy is being shown as basically a middle class movement, a kind of
Yeah.
upper middle class, urban middle class movement, who are totally out of tune, which is what is happening in rural society, out in the districts and
I
villages,
mean,
who are
that's the aim. That is the
that is
aim
that
to
is the
make
aim.
to make
Now,
this people of privilege vis-a-vis the poor who are suffering because of the protest.
absolutely.
That is
So that
clearly the
that
aim.
narrative, yeah, they have not tried to conceal or be subtle
Yeah,
about that narrative at all. But
yeah.
obviously, as we as we pointed out, that even the Supreme Court fell for it. That narrative about 23 extra deaths and etc. That was total bloomer because in a month's time, West Bengal has 1,500, 150,000 people dying by natural mortality in a month's time. So if you refer back to what we were speaking during the COVID days, that out of 150,000, if you had an incremental mortality of 22 or 23, that is hardly a huge impact factor. So there was no weight of science or statistics beyond that, but one cannot deny this fact that if you have the whole group of junior doctors staying away, it is a handicap for the system. Without a doubt, it is. It is a handicap for the system and it is a handicap for the doctors themselves. They are also suffering. So I think at some kind of consensus needs to be reached. I have a feeling that maybe before the day ends today, they will announce a meeting of some description and hopefully, find some mid path. And I'm really optimistic that I look forward to this impasse ending, hopefully within the next 24 hours.
A last question. There are two ways of looking at Mamata Banerjee's arrival at the protest site. One is and there are those who are arguing this, Mamata Banerjee has outsmarted the doctors. The doctors are apolitical. They're just young men and women driven by passion and their sense of right and wrong. They don't have the political craft of Ms. Banerjee. And there I've seen, columns in the last 24 hours arguing that she's outplayed them. The other way to look at the fact, to look at her very arrival at the protest site, is that Mamata Banerjee has had to move from not saying anything at all to calling these protests politicized, to acceding to many of the demands of the doctors, waiting for them for 2 hours. The doctors don't show up, to now having to finally go herself to meet these doctors. And that in itself is no measure of small victory for the doctors. Which way do you look at it?
Barkha, I mean, if this was a war, then this war is not going to have any winners. And if anybody even pretends to have a sense of victory from this, it will be, what is called a Pyrrhic victory. That even in your victory, you will carry a deep sense of loss with yourselves. But
Correct.
if the doctor or the medical community has been able to do anything, that is to highlight that, that the civic society, with the civic society's support, we can highlight these issues as a social issue in front of the society, in front of the country. And we have really ridden on the shoulders of these young men and women, right? I think the point has been made. The government will be compelled how much they can to sanitize the healthcare system, to restore a sense of rationality in the healthcare system. It cannot be totally run over by mafias and gundas, not no more. And regarding the rape and the murder case, obviously, whatever conclusion the CBI comes to, I think that will have to be accepted. It may not be a popular verdict, but that will be a verdict that everybody has to accept. So this is definitely not going to have any winners. But if there has been one thing that in our lifetime, our juniors, our compatriots were able to do, is to highlight these problems adequately. And this could never have been done without the society, the media, and everybody being with us.
Absolutely. I think whatever happens from here, the doctors have already been agents of change. How, that change may not go as far as we wish. The outcome of justice in this case may not be to our satisfaction, because so many of us believe that critical evidence has been destroyed or covered up or manipulated, and the CBI is then left with the dregs to make sense of. But even so, these doctors have already been agents of change, and more power to them. Dr. Sarkar, I think I share your sense that perhaps in the next 24 hours, the impasse will be broken. And I also agree with you that irrespective of what happens now, I think the doctors have already demonstrated that they have been brave, they have been compassionate, and they have been selfless to a large measure. They have taken risks with their jobs and their careers. Are you trying to say a last word before we say goodbye and thank you to you?
Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Always, sir. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.